Well, hello, Patriots, and welcome back to another edition of Meeting the Candidates. My name is Greg Gibson, and I'll be your host. We are thankful to have Adina Safta with us tonight. She gets to know, or lets us get to know her. The United Patriot Party welcomes you, Adina. I've had the opportunity, the blessing to meet her on a few different occasions. I'm very impressed with who she is and what she stands for. Miss Adina, if you would like, please introduce yourself.
Yeah, thank you for having me. And yeah, I feel like during these trying times, you lose a lot of relationships and people that you've known for so long, but then you gain relationships. Like, we randomly met. I think I was recording, it was my announcement. I just announced and decided that I was running for office. And, you all were there, not peacefully assembling, whatever you want to call it. And I just randomly walked up to you all. So I feel like in this mess, we've also built some good relationships. So, but yeah, my name's Adina Safta, and I'm running for U.S. Congress, District 2. So with North Carolina's new redistricting, initially it was 5. And so it's been very confusing for candidates like myself. And so I can imagine how confusing it is for voters. I tell everyone, don't rely on the websites and any candidate websites, because they're not accurate right now. And so I'm running as the only Republican candidate, and Deborah Ross is my opponent. So right now the seat is filled by a Democrat. It is one of the hardest districts, and so I never really liked anything that was easy. So when people have in the first 2 months told me to not run because it was such a difficult district, only 30% of the district is Republican, that empowered me to run even more so, because the district 2 covers basically half of the top portion of Wake County, but what's most important is it covers the capital city of our state. And so Wake County is the biggest county in the state overall, and this district, I think, is very important that we take back as Republicans and conservatives. So I'm excited to be running in this district. It's been a journey and a ride, but we're almost there.
Well, we're going to get there, and we're going to get there together. The redistricting is, it's a big deal in North Carolina, and from what I've talked to people in Florida, in California, across the nation right now, the redistricting has been a really big upheaval. A lot of people were kind of had a game plan together, and all of that just shifted. It shifted completely. How does that affect your strategy at all?
Well, the big news is that as far as some of the districts, the biggest disadvantage to some of the candidates was it was just completely changed, right? So for me, because I'm at a disadvantage from a Republican Democrat split, the way the district was drawn, that didn't really affect me, because I'm still starting in a negative, 70%. So that didn't affect me as much as time. So time for me, because I'm running in a tough district, because my opponent is recognized in the political quote unquote world, name recognition was my #1 challenge going into this race. And so the way that the race works is you can't really have any media outlets or whatever is left of conservative ones, any current politicians, any GOP groups. Nobody can endorse you, nobody can stand behind you until the primaries are over. So what this process of redistricting and the suit till blue back and forth did to me as a candidate is it made me lose. This is month 3 that I would have had name recognition, because once the registrations are closed, which would have been the end of December, then effective January, I could have, announced that I have no opponent in the primaries running against me as a Republican. So then all of these groups could have backed me up, and I would have been way ahead of the race. But now here we are. May is when primaries is scheduled for, and I've got March, April, and here's May, right? So the huge disadvantage, speaking of, what's constitutional, what's unconstitutional, Roy Cooper likes to say that the maps weren't constitutional, but I think what he's actually violating is our right to run fair, to run for a fair election and campaign. As a candidate, I'm at a huge disadvantage because of it, but that just means we've got to work extra hard. And either way, I mean, I have no doubt that we'll pull through, and we'll go right through the primaries if we don't have an opponent. But the wait until the primaries was the biggest challenge, or not have an opponent. So time is what I've lost, and that's been a huge hit. And the other, for other candidates and for our state, obviously the redistricting was approved back in November, and then stew till blue. Gosh, if I took you through that timeline, I've had 5 different maps for my district. So I plead the fifth. Hopefully this is the last map. But yeah, so it's gone back and forth. There's been, if the timeline is outrageous. But fast forward to today, the Democrats, when we went back with the new maps, they basically approved all of them, the Senate, state Senate, and state House, except for US Congress, US House. Why? Because the US House is the one that is important to them, because they're their first class ticket to communism. So if we take over the House, we can impeach Joe, we can impeach, we have the power to approve budgets, decline budgets. We have the power to stop the buck, stop it right there before it even gets further to Senate, etc. But they want that, they want the majority. But right now it's 8 Republican, 5 Democrats. We're adding a seat, and we just need to, not lose any conservative seats, but we need to add additional. So with me and another candidate running in a difficult quote unquote district, we'll be taking 2 out of those 5, and then the additional one. So
very cool. It's I know back last year, right after the inauguration and all that, Mitch McConnell was one that came out and said, we're not going to allow any of these grassroots candidates. They're going to have to be approved by the establishment, and that's coming from, that wasn't coming from the Democrat side. That was coming from the Republican side, and we recognized then that getting patriots in place would be an uphill battle. So we knew that the fight was coming at us, right? I'm just thankful that there are people like you that are willing to take that fight on and meet it head on and be unwielding in it. Now you were in Raleigh when, as a business owner, when some of the rioting occurred a couple of years ago. You've watched sort
gosh,
of
a couple of years ago. It sounds so crazy when you even say, like, it's been so, like, we've been in this for so long. Sorry.
well, you've watched sort of the evolution to where we are right now happen in such a rapid pace. What got you into politics? At what point did you say, what, enough is enough, I have to do something?
Okay, so I do want to say they're peaceful riots. But yeah, so I guess I was in corporate America for 16 years in finance and banking, right? And so I left corporate America in January of 2020, and perfectly so, 2 months later, the whole entire world collapsed. And so when I left corporate America, I spent a long time just putting together this plan, because so I realized that in corporate America and banking, the small business segment was kind of like, it's not profitable to the banks. So a lot of banks were eliminating the small business sector. Small business meaning like the $1 to $5 million companies. And what I realized in business banking was that those businesses were the ones that needed help the most, because they're the ones that don't have CFOs. They don't have a board of members that, give them advice and help them financially. They come to the bank and they come to their CPA and they rely on those experts to give them the best advice. But what happens is in corporate America, you have an umbrella over your head, and you're looking out for corporate America, not really your client. And same thing, with CPAs, they help clients, but they're looking at their bottom line and deductions and helping them not pay taxes. And so the big gap was businesses were not showing profit. They were, profitable to a certain extent, but they would come in and they're like, I've got a $5 million company. I want a loan. I'm expanding. And it's like, no, you're not a $5 million company. You're a negative $200,000 company. And nobody was there to kind of like marry the two, find the middle ground. Like, if a company wants to grow in the next 3 years, then perhaps, you need to strategically plan for that so that they can grow and leverage and get credit the way they need to grow. So that's the long part of it. So when I noticed that, I said, I need to start a company that's going to help small businesses with their financial needs. That can be the middle person. I know they can't hire a CFO for $165,000, but they can hire fractional CFO. And so the company was a financial firm, and it was to help small businesses with their financials from a CFO standpoint. And so when the world collapsed 2 months later, I had to make a decision. I mean, this was a pandemic, a health pandemic, right? And so I lost health insurance for the first time ever in my life. I always had health insurance. And then 16 years later, I gave it up 2 months before a pandemic. And so I said, okay, I'm either going to go back into corporate America because what is happening, like this is new to everybody, and I just started my business, or I'm going to run through this fire and I'm just going to have one goal in mind, forget my business plan, forget my budget, forget all that. I'm going to keep these businesses, these clients in business, and I'm going to make sure that they see the end part on a positive and they're not going to get shut down. And so I stayed in the fire. It was the easiest decision ever. I said, there was no doubt in my mind. So in that process of helping my small business clients, I also handled a lot of the government funding, the PPP, the EIDL, all of it. And I was in the Triangle Business Journal. I think it was in May, I want to say, of 2020, or maybe. But anyhow, when I was in that Triangle Business Journal, I had companies calling me from Texas, from Tennessee, from all over the country when they saw that there was a fractional CFO that was handling PPP funds, managing it for their clients. And so I realized that the government was giving us this money, but there was no resources, there was no help, there was no assistance. So you had these small business clients calling the SBA was telling them to call the bank was telling them to call the CPA, and it was just a shit show. And so when I saw that, I said, okay, hold on a minute. I'm a CFO. I love our economy. I love finance. I need to get to the root cause of this. Who is screwing this up? And who was it? US Congress. They were screwing it all up. They were approving bills, they don't even know what a budget is, but here they are, millions of dollars, billions of dollars. And then on top of it, they would come back and say, we changed these rules. I like to know my stuff. I would read all the 100 pages PPP. The next day, it was different. So I thought, okay, it must be like a circus. They're all sitting in a room. They make a decision. One person says, but wait, what about that? And then they go and change the whole freaking thing. So there was no organization. It was like the worst thing I've ever seen. And then there was no accountability for the business clients. So I was like, wait, so that means that the government has no accountability with the things they do, because anybody in any business would not let you just hand out money and have no plan for how you track it. And there was nothing. So it was just ludicrous. So when I saw that, I said, okay, I stayed in it. First of all, I never ever in my life intended to run for anything political. I've always been a patriot. I've always loved our country, but I never had intentions to run for government positions. And so towards the end of 2020, I said, I need to reevaluate my company. I mean, it was a lot because I had different industries. I mean, I had high risk industries that, some were shut down, some weren't. And just imagine keeping track of all the regulations that were changing every single day. It was a lot. And so I said, okay, I need to figure out what my true purpose is, because I thought that was my purpose when I started my business, and especially when I ran into the fire and stayed. And so when I noticed that this pandemic was still going on, there was no plans of anything changing. And I knew early on, going back, I knew after the 90 days that this was something greater than what it was, basically what it was seeming to be. And so going into 2021, I decided, I prayed on it and I said, you know what, God, just give me my true purpose. So this is not my purpose. And fast forward to today, around May, June. It's funny because there was an episode of events that happened. I met Donald Trump in June of 2021. And after I met him and I shook his hand, and he was just such a humble person, and I've always loved him. And after, I partnered with this one candidate that was running for Congress, and just seeing what the qualifications are and the things that are going on, I just knew I couldn't sit on the sidelines anymore. And I said, you know what, God, if we're going to create change, we're not going to do it from out here. We need one of us in every group to throw ourselves into this fire. And I said, I will do the fire one more time. And so I said, US Congress is what I'm running for, because US Congress is what is going to make us communist or save us from communism. So that's where I'm going.
Love it. Absolutely love it.
It's tough. I mean, it's very hard because when you decide to run, first of all, when you apply for a job, you shouldn't have to worry about erasing your entire life. Like there's no sense, there's no privacy, there's no, it's like you decide to run and it's like, were you ever a mistress? Did you ever like blink the wrong way? And it's like, have I had mistresses? Yes, no, I'm kidding. But
Of course you
it's
have.
like, why do you need to know? It's none of your business. Like, but that was the biggest challenge that I had when I decided to run because I'm like, I don't want to erase my whole life. First of all, I have nothing to hide. I dare you to try. But at the same time, that's just outrageous. If we're playing fair, we're playing fair. And if you deserve this position, you should win. And if you don't, then you're gonna lose. But don't attack my personal life. And if you do, then I feel really bad for you because you should never try that.
I know, on one hand, it's the family side. On the other hand, it's the, working within the political spectrum that we have out there available. My take on it. I call them the mirror party now, that there's no separation between Republicans and Democrats. There, you see one, you see the other. But with that being said, have you tried reaching out to and working with the Republican Party, and how were you received?
Oh yeah, I spent a good amount of time at the legislative office, and the Republican Party, they've been, the House representatives that I've met and I've partnered with have been great. What I love when you go to the legislative office is, obviously it's a Republican majority. And so you feel like you're in like freedom land, like everyone does what they're comfortable with, like it's just, you don't feel like you're walking in as a like criminal. Like you walk into Target and everyone's chasing you down the Target aisles and it's like, hold on, I knew this was like a mask mandate, like get away from me, like you're harassing me, like go away. And so everybody that I've met in the Republican Party has been absolutely amazing, in from the sense of like House representatives, anyone that's holding political office currently. And even the GOP, we've got work to do, but I think like the folks that have held on, I think our GOP, our Wake County GOP, there's a lot of work that we need to do, and they know that. But Donna and a few others that are key on the GOP, they work a lot, and there are a lot of challenges because Wake County is so Democrat. Even finding volunteers is like pulling teeth, like it's difficult. So given those circumstances, I think that we've got a lot of work to do, but the people that have kind of stuck through with it, I'm grateful for, because they could have given up too. So, you gotta take what you have and, build from there. So.
Absolutely. We've got, as the United Patriot Party is steadily growing here in North Carolina, we're starting to spread across different states now. We sort of all fall under these same this sort of general categories of things that we would like to see changed about our government. And if you don't mind, we'll move into some of those areas. And I consider them all to be their first priority. It's the things that they should be focusing on absolutely positively first. Now, there's about 4 different things, but we've given them 70 years and they failed to recognize their need to work on any of it. So now those dues are come. It's come time for those dues to be paid. Excuse me. With that being said, one of our number one priorities that we see our government officials need to focus on is their oath of office, their oath to defend and protect the Constitution. How do you feel about the Constitution? How important
You
is
mean this Constitution?
the unit? Yes, that Constitution, absolutely.
This one?
Yep.
I sleep with it at night. Mine is like so worn out. It's like a worn out pair of boots, and like I've got it signed on the back. I absolutely love I'm a Constitution pusher, seriously. Like I ordered these when I decided to run, maybe like 1,000 of them. I've given them all out. I don't know if everyone's read them, which, I tell people, I'm like, look, you can have the Constitution, but do you read the Constitution? Like since you asked me this question, like I'm pretty dramatic. I have notes in my Constitution. I highlight stuff too. I think that if we knew the Constitution, we would not be in this position today. We wouldn't be in this position 90 days. If we knew our rights and we knew the power that the people have, the power that we, the people, have versus the government, we would have taken control, of things way sooner in this game. But since we didn't, it's proven that we don't know the Constitution, which is shameful. As Americans, we should know the Constitution. And look, I didn't know the Constitution front to back like I do now, but okay, we made a mistake. We failed at something. So how do you fix it? You learn it, right? Like you've got to start somewhere. You can't just praise it and not know it. And so I have this thing I came up with, which I am getting trademarked, so nobody take it. CRT, we'll meet the school systems halfway. We'll take CRT and we'll turn it to Constitution Restoration Training. We need to restore the Constitution. We need to understand it. We need to dissect it. We need to know who has power, how the power, is dispersed, right? Because the government has some power, the people have majority, and the part that the government has, who has the majority of that power within the government, and what are the different branches of the government? We need to understand that. And we need to understand it before this election, because nobody should vote for a Republican because they're Republican, and nobody should vote for a Democrat because they're Democrat. Because I say this, as a there's nobody that should be more mad and should want an America First candidate more in office than a Democrat that was lied to. Because there are good Democrats that voted because of the platform, and then they were lied to. So they should be the first one that are endorsing and walking and running to a America First candidate, because they're realizing that they were lied to. But back to the Constitution, 100%. The US Constitution, the state Constitution, look, the governor used the Constitution against us. He used our rights against us to say something was unconstitutional because we, the people, don't have a voice in the, it's ludicrous. So yes, the Constitution, in the back of the Constitution, it says that every public school that gets federal funding is required to teach the Constitution on Constitution Day. I bet you every public school system could lose all their federal funding because I guarantee it, nobody's teaching it. They're worried about anti-American CRT.
Absolutely. And that brings me to something I wanted to talk to you about. Having in some of my recent adventures, and I know that watching what you're doing as far as some of your recent adventures, we've seen what the school boards are. It's what they're up to. It's what they're actually out there teaching our next generations of leaders. How do you see the Constitution being applied even in the school boards or the school systems right now?
Well, that is a loaded question, because I can talk about the school system and the school board for probably 5 years and I still wouldn't be finished. But the thing is, I don't know if you saw my video, I spoke at the last school board meeting. Our North Carolina Constitution, Section 15 says that education, it's all around education. And it says that everybody has the right to education. And right now, you don't. It's segregation. It's basically, if you are a student in Wake County, I can speak for Wake County. If you're a student and you can't wear a mask for medical reasons, because you're throwing up in your mask, because you're getting headaches, because you're passing out, it doesn't matter. You get put in a COVID room, and you just sit there and you literally don't understand what's wrong, like elementary school kids, it's insane. But you don't get the chance to education. I know an actual child that couldn't go to school for 10 days because he literally was having, he threw up in his mask. They put him in a COVID room with his mask. They wouldn't let him remove his mask. I mean, this is child abuse. It's criminal. And so he couldn't go back to school for 10 days because his mom fought. She was like, there's no way I'm allowing my kid to go back, knowing what I know and what happened. But that she had, mind you, proper notes from the doctor from last year in September that they kept denying. So the mom had more than she even needed based on the CDC North Carolina requirement. And still the principal denied that child education for 10 consecutive days. And that's not acceptable. Our school system is supposed to protect our kids and protect their education. And instead they're protecting the power in the money that they're getting to have that power. And the money is ESSER funds. ESSER funds is how the government decided to buy the school systems so that they can, basically the school system sold the kids and their education for money that the government gave them. And who gave them the majority of that funding? Joe.
You know, it befuddles me that we've now allowed our education system to fall into, you know, this tenure system where teachers can't be fired. You know, we've got people in place that don't answer to the people anymore. They, you know, it's inmates running the circus now. So when a kid does go in and says, "Look, I'm an individual. I'm not a machine. I'm not a statistic nor a number, and I need exceptions made." They don't know how to react to that. They don't understand how to function when an independent thought is necessary. And I'm not bashing on teachers. I'm really not. I'm just saying that the monster, the machine.
No, because there's a lot of good ones too.
Yes, absolutely. We've got good teachers, and I don't want it to come off as I'm you know, saying all teachers are evil. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying that the machine is corrupted. Once we allow, you know, communism to seep into any crevice in our governmental system, it immediately attacks every program that it can. The education system, public education system, being one of those. So I'm thankful that folks like you are out there and you're speaking out. You're saying, no, we're not going to go down this road. You are much more critical than you'll ever know for that.
Yeah, well, and also too, I tell people, like, the thing is, you know, teachers are put in a bad situation, right? Because there's good teachers that they don't want to wear a mask, that, you know, that fear has really taken over a lot of people. And, you know, it's sad because you don't know what that point is where fear takes over. Is it because you need a paycheck because you're a single mom, or because, you know, you just need a paycheck because you want the paycheck, or you love being a teacher and, you know, you don't know what else to do, you know, and then you end up filtering that down to the kids and basically torturing them, not realizing what you're doing. So it's a bigger picture than we even see it, any of us. But what I'll say is, for me, I don't have children. I aspire to be a mom. I want 4 children. No way in this world will I have kids, because if I can't stand up and not be self-interest, right? If I can't humble myself, stand up and realize that the kids in the school systems now need me and they need us. And if we don't stand up for them, shame on us if we complain about our future employees that are not listening to us. You don't get to say anything, leader, because guess what? If you don't stand up for the kids right now, you don't get to say when your doctor is a corrupt doctor in 10 years, right? Because the generation right now, K through 12, this has been a 100-year plan, right? Our education system has been corrupted, and the kids were the only ones that weren't, you know, it was like the government, the corrupt communist, Marxist, whatever. They were like, well, the governments, they're so busy. The Republicans, Democrats, they're busy on, like, you know, all these policies and things, but they're not focusing on the kids. We'll take the kids. And they took the kids. And they said, through everything we do, they corrupted social studies, liberal arts. I mean, why isn't it freedom arts and American studies, right? They've literally embedded these things into our brains. And so over time, that's why they're like, now this is our time, because this is where the generations, they thought that freedom fighters like me were gone. They were not alive anymore. And they were so wrong. They didn't expect us to fight back. They thought that their plan, this was their time to do what they're doing. And so my point to that is, parents, when I saw at the school board, like, parents are emotionally invested. These are their babies. These are their best creation in the world. They love and cherish. I cannot imagine what parents are going through emotionally, mentally, everything, and the kids too. And so for me, when I watched that, I said, if we don't stand up for these kids, we should have, like, we don't have emotional interest. We should have personal interest, that we care about our communities, to stand up, even if there's no benefit for me. No, the benefit for me is that I can help these kids. And if I can't help these kids and I'm not willing to, then I don't really deserve anything, really, honestly. So that's how I feel about that.
I agree. You know, I'm sure you've heard me say this at least 1,000 times. We are currently writing the history that will be told 100 years from now. And I believe
Yep.
personally that this is one of the most pivotal times in American history, in world history. Um, the, everything that we do counts now. Everything that we don't do now
Everything.
counts across the board.
Yep.
So, the moments of standing up for our children, even in the smallest way, it matters now. It really matters. And our lack of action, it will show. It will show in times to come.
And also too, history, once it's created, you can't undo it. So if you're not willing to recognize that now and do something to be on the right side of the history, then once it's laid out, you can't, it's not one of those things where you're like, I wish I would have been nicer to that boy. No, like once history is created, like you cannot reverse it. And if we're going to win, because if we believe in God, we know we're going to win. The victory is not the other side. But at the same time, we might endure a lot more had we not all come together sooner. So it's up to us to create the history we want.
Agreed,
Sooner.
agreed. And the next thing that constitutional adherence being an absolute essential day one thing, starting today at 8:44 p.m. our time. Constitutional adherence for all of our politicians. That needs to
CRT.
be, yep, exactly. The next number one thing on their agenda list, something that we know that they need to correct, is our flawed election system. I know that you were very acutely aware of a lot of the election anomalies, to be polite about it, that we watched in 2020. And what do you see? How do you see us repairing the election system going forward?
With what was the part with
How,
doing what?
how do we resolve our election, the possibility of election fraud? In other words, it's 2022.
Yeah.
We should, at a bare minimum, have an election system we can trust. We don't.
Paper ballots, election day, all these extra things that are being added, those are just layers of fraud. Like here, everything else is fraud, fraud, fraud. Mail-in ballots should only be if you're a service member, if you are a first responder and you can't make it the day of, but like we need to protect the polls. So there's a few steps. And so I don't know if you noticed, my only endorsement that I've had, and I've talked to different people, is Seth Keshel. And Seth Keshel is ex-military intelligence, and his main focus is election fraud. And obviously, like 2020, he's like an election genius. I mean, we went through Wake County, and he like went through all the precincts with me, and where there was potential fraud, because even where like areas that Trump won, it doesn't matter, like, or like a Republican one, there was still fraud in it where the numbers were skewed. And so we need to pay attention to that. So step one is we need to understand what happened in 2020. Any candidate that's a Republican that you ask this question of, what about 2020, that tells you forget about it, you forget about them and you don't vote for them. Because when fraud happens in America, we don't just forget about it. We've got things in place where we can fight back. And if we just forget about fraud, then it's going to keep happening, and it's going to happen worse. And so for me, we need to understand as candidates and as patriots, what happened in 2020. We need to look at our precincts. We need to know, why does it matter? Like, what system? Was it the paper ballots? Was it the election? Like, where did the issues happen? Like, where do we go wrong, right? And what are the areas that were most affected? In those areas, we need to triple up on people that are there the day of elections, right? And we need boots on the ground day of. So that's one. So patriots in Wake County, you need to get involved with your current precinct. You don't just get to vote, you need to be involved. So you need to be involved, you need to vote, obviously, right? And I guess going into the vote part, a lot of patriots say, well, if they're fraud, why should I vote? Well, here's why. I'm running. No, but if you don't vote, we don't have a fight. As a patriot, even in the worst of times and situations, we have to have faith and hope that things will get better if we do our part, right? And our part is voting. And if you vote, then I have a fight to fight that there was fraud, and then we can fight. But if I go and fight and no one voted, then I look like a crazy person. So we need to do our part and have faith in, we have to have faith in the system, even when the system doesn't work, because we have to have faith in that we're going to fight for what's right. And so for me, like, protecting the precincts and getting involved, making sure that we're voting, and making sure that we don't forget about 2020, because 2020 happened and 2020 needs accountability. And if we let the accountability go, look at what's happened in this like administration. The Brandon administration is horrible. And if we don't hold accountable the people who are responsible for this, and it starts at the polls, then we're not Americans and we are cowards. So accountability is the big thing for 2020. And going into this year, if we're protecting the precincts and we're there, boots on the ground, if we're doing our part and we're voting, we have to have faith that if anything goes wrong, that you're voting for a fighter who is not gonna, just accept defeat. Because I'm not going in to accept defeat. So we're not gonna accept defeat. But we need to be proactive before, more so than during. Or, like, we need to sign up and do everything now so that when we get there, we're not scrambling to get people to go in and, we get kicked out. No, we need to go in unity, and then they can't kick us out and they can't take over the elections.
It befuddles me that after that election, at a bare minimum, there was so much mistrust labeled to that particular election or election year. You would like to think that we would tell our representatives, no, you have but one chore now. You will lock yourself in a room and you will resolve the election program, the election system as a whole. And for them to just skirt past it, to just completely ignore it, it's disturbing, to say the least. It's disturbing that, it tells me that everybody, all of the players kind of like the game that they're playing, regardless of what we, the voters, think.
There's another part to the election. You just reminded me of it too, is we need to also, in our Constitution, protect the 26th Amendment that tells us that you have to be a citizen and 18 years old. Nowhere does it say an illegal immigrant can vote. I'm an immigrant. I came here and I earned my citizenship, and I cried like a baby the day I got my citizenship. I was like, oh my God, I'm American. So I'm not okay with any illegal immigrant voting, and they're not going to. And dead people are not voting this election. We're going to make sure of it. So look, keep your 6 feet apart, but 6 feet under, you don't count. You don't qualify. We need to make sure that illegals and dead people don't vote. They just don't. They don't show up that day and they don't vote. And you know what? Illegal immigrants, there are a lot of great illegal immigrants here. And it's really shameful that the Democrats prey on that. And I guess this was part of their plan, right? And there's a reason why they kept things the way they did. But for me, I know so many hardworking immigrants that are here and that don't have, proper papers. So why do we not have, as Americans, a plan for them to become citizens? Why do we want to keep them illegal? It's because the Democrats, the corruption, it is so sick that, we just want to keep you as a dreamer, but not an American dreamer, right? Like, no, you're literally working and investing in this economy. You deserve citizenship. And you American, that liberal, that literally don't care about this country, why don't you give your citizenship to them and you go to their country? Fair. Done. We just solved American problems.
That I can't stress that enough. I have yet to meet, while I've been out and about doing rallies and protests and meeting people, not once have I run up on any one individual, not one single time have I walked up to anybody and had a conversation about this and they say, no, I'm against immigration. There has never been that conversation. There is the concern for—
We were built on immigration.
Exactly. We know that we are a melting pot here. The United States is built on that. So, that pathway for, solid people coming into our country who are going to benefit us as a nation, benefit us as a people, that's what we're looking for. And that brings us to, one of our next issues, border security. So we've got election security, and another issue that we've called out for the last 40 years is border security. It's not good fences make good neighbors, and that is the way that we look at it. How do you feel about border security? How would we resolve the border issue that we have now?
Well, we need to build a wall to start. Like, there's no reason why that wall is not getting built.
Mhm.
And I tell people, do you lock your door at home? Yes. Why don't you just leave it open? I mean, why not? Someone can break your window. So, I mean, like, you can break windows in any room and walk in, but you still lock your door. You're protecting your home, right? What's in your home. Our country is the best country in this world, no matter what anybody says. And when you have something that's so precious, corruption, criminals, they want to attack it, and they want to come in and they want to destroy it. So why are we welcoming them with open arms? And the thing is, I tell people, this sweet family is not crossing the border that is going to get here and then they're going to live the American dream. This sweet family is crossing, thinking they're crossing to have that dream, and then something else happens. And I'm so disturbed by this whole thing. You think about human trafficking, about drugs, and all cartel, all these things, right? And then you see the media just portray that, like, Trump is against immigration and blah, 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 blah. No, Trump is against human trafficking. He's against illegal drugs coming into our country. He's against criminals. And so, yeah, I support that. And every American that wakes up, that cares about their kids, their families, their own selves, that locks their door, everyone that locks their door should support a border. Then if you don't support a border, Nancy, leave your door unlocked. But she has a border herself on top of her locked door. So a border is a 1000% necessary thing that needs to happen now. But the thing is, this was a part of the plan. Trump was building the wall because he knew the need for it. And then Biden didn't want to build it. Why? Because he needs the votes.
Absolutely. And
so shameful.
It's, I've never seen, well, you go back and just in my personal history, I look back at George W. Bush. He ran on border security. Nothing ever happened. Obama called for border security. Nothing ever happened. Bill Clinton called for border security. Nothing ever happened. You get to Trump, and Trump actually started building a wall. He got as far as he could, and everybody on both sides. It was almost done. Yeah, everybody on both sides fought that tooth and nail. While everybody on both sides has said for years, hey, we need a border wall. So either they've changed their minds or they were lying to begin with. Tell me why.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. It's an agenda. That's how I feel. Politicians, businessman, loves America, hates America, wants to make America successful, wants to destroy America. That's the difference. Trump said it, he meant it, he did it. And that just burned them from the inside out. All these politicians, if you're a politician, you're a politician. If you're a public servant, you're a Trump. And Trump is the greatest president that I'll ever live to see. And Trump did what he said. The politicians, they had the power. Look at how many bills they're passing. Look at how many things they're doing. They could have done it. There's nothing that is saying that they couldn't have done it. The only thing that was holding them back is, I think, that they just didn't want to, or I don't know, who knows, corruption. I don't believe that in America, if you truly believe in something and you want it done, that you can't do it. I just don't.
And when we talk about, destroying the nation from within, and I don't know if you and I have had the opportunity to talk about this, but I consider one of the greatest threats to the American people to be really the central banking system, the Federal Reserve. Their enforcement arm, the IRS, and their tool for confiscation, which is the 16th Amendment, the income tax. Now, personally, if I were king for a day, I would completely abolish the income tax and go to a sales tax only based tax so that people keep what they earn and that they, then they control how much they're taxed by the purchases they make. The fair tax program or something along that line. Not advocating one way or the other, just a sales tax based system. I believe personally that income taxation is theft. When you've got people that are having to cough up a minimum of 40%, but generally speaking, on the finished end of it, about 60% of their earnings to the government. That's a pretty hefty tax, to put on families. How do you feel about the tax program, and how would you go about remedying that for the American workers?
So the tax it's obviously like a big giant in itself, and everything you do is tax, right? I've lived in a state where there was income tax, and I've lived in a state where there wasn't. I'll say I never felt like I paid less taxes in one than the other, because the way that I look at taxes is they're spread out through like our everyday lives for different things, whether it's, a sales tax or an income tax, you're paying tax, whether you pay it up front or you pay it when you file your taxes, you're going to pay it 20%, whatever. In some corporations, corporate America, when you make bonuses, you pay 40% of your bonus. You're like, whoa, what just happened? Like, just hit you right out of nowhere. Like, you're expecting all this money. And so the way that I look at taxes is not shifting it from one into the other and spreading it out. It's looking at the actual tax and mitigating that percentage and saying, okay, we don't tax the rich that employ the middle class. That's a dumb decision. Why would you do that? You're just eliminating the middle class, basically. And, because then the rich is going to say, well, I'm going to find a way, like this is not going to work. And so I don't think that taxing a class more than the other solves anything, because we're a capitalist society and we should stay that way. And you get to earn as much, and you get, everybody has the same opportunity. I wake up tomorrow morning. Look, I came here. I lived in a 1-bedroom apartment in Queens above a pizzeria with one mattress. That's how we started our life. We didn't speak English. We didn't know what a tomato was, and we didn't care if it was tomato or tomato. So we had the same opportunity as anybody else, even given those circumstances. So the American dream is here for anyone to have. It's the opportunities that you need to take advantage of that come in your life. And so the tax, I don't think that spreading it out and moving it helps. I think we need to look at our taxes as a whole. You have corporations that are small businesses that are within like that 5 to 10 million bracket, and they're deciding, do I file as an S corp? Do I change to a C corp? Because the gaps are so different. It's just very confusing for like small businesses and individuals to know, like, okay, is this pass through if I'm an S corp? So then I pay it on my personal tax bracket. Is this a C corp? So do I pay it on my W-2s? I think that there needs to be more clarity and maybe more consistency within like state to state, because it's different for, in some circumstances like the income tax. And so I think consistency is important, because we are the United States of America. And I know certain things don't have to be, but this I think does. And I also think that we need to look at the actual taxes, like the percentages, and lower those. Like Trump, when he came into office, the C corps, he almost cut in half of what the corporations paid. So a lot of corporations changed from S corp to C corp. However, when you do that, you have to stay a C corp for 5 years. So the risk they were running is if Joe comes in and he raises taxes, they can't change from a C corp back to an S corp, and that's a big penalty if it doubles back. So there's risk, but a lot of corporations took the risk because Trump did what was good for America in our capitalist society, lowering it, not taxing the rich more. And our government has to apply it properly, because if the government applied our tax money in the way they should, at every level, local, state, and federal, then we wouldn't complain about it. But they're not. Look, our IRS doesn't answer the phone. Our DMV doesn't even know like what day they're working on, and it's a shit show. So
Absolutely. And that that's one of the things that we would like to look at. We've got two issues that we consider wish list items, and we'll move into the second to first in this case. But talking about the application of monies taxed from people up, how does it come back out? And one of the things that I would dearly love to see us pass, again, immediately, is a balanced budget amendment. If Congress, if any household runs their home the way that Congress runs the nation, they're going to be broke in days. If you spend more than you make, you can do so for a while, but you can't do so for very long. You're going to run out of money. So you either make more than you spend or you spend less than you make. There's only two options. How do you feel about a balanced budget amendment as a means to control Congress?
A balanced?
A balanced budget amendment, yes.
Well, I think first our Congress needs to have experience in approving budgets, which is a lack. I think our Congress, you should not allow to even be in US Congress if you don't have financial experience, because no matter what we do and how we balance it, if we don't have the competence and the experience, like AOC complains about $70,000 student loan, you're making $164,000 a year and raising 7 million. AOC, what is up? So I think that the root issue is the people in the seats don't understand budgets. They don't understand financials. Nothing against them, but they don't have the experience. And so you need that experience in order to understand what you're passing and what you're not. And you also need to not have self-interest, because everything that has money attached to it, I learned this as a CFO, there's always going to be a self-interest portion that always leans towards corruption. And people that don't have value, don't understand the value of inflation and money and how the Federal Reserve works. They don't understand it because they're not experienced in it. They go for the carrot and they're like, well, it's not really going to hurt anybody if I just take these $5 million and put them in my bank, like they don't know. So unless you understand how our financial system works and understand what a thriving society is versus a communist society, if you don't understand those things, and that's why the US Congress is such a focus of corruption, because they basically put puppets in there that they own and they control, and they don't understand any of the stuff they're passing. You think they read 4,000 pages of the Build Back Better plan? No, but they are promoting it like they did. And so that's where it starts. And from there, I think that we need to have limitations on even beyond Congress. You cannot just approve billions of dollars that don't even exist, that we don't even have. I forgot the percentage, but I think it's 30% of every dollar that you pay in tax goes towards paying our debt. It's 30%. Yeah. And so that's a lot. So when you understand that and you're like, okay, we can't really make this decision to approve anything right now. We're not approving anything else. We'll just let Jesus take the wheel because we're not ready to. We're not financially stable. Our leverage is way out of this world. So it's like when you're a business, you go to the bank. They don't just give you a loan once you're literally in the negative. No, they have to underwrite it. They have to look at your creditworthiness. They have to look at your financials for the last 5 years. We should be operating the same way. Our country is one big business, and it's literally being operated like a nonprofit, and it's going down this fast slope of just bad.
Absolutely. One of the ways, we talk about the folks that we do put in, what we're looking for, candidates as we, put them up, we vote for them, we put our effort behind them, we put our time behind them, and we get them in. But after that, in a lot of cases, they just kind of go on cruise control. They just go into this, vote for the name, regardless of what I do or do not do. How do you feel about a term limit amendment to the Constitution?
Well, I think term limits need to exist, but also I always go back to this. If there was accountability, so when we're voting for somebody, and again, when I say these things, I say it because I'm guilty of it. I've failed at these things. I admit it, and we need to do better, right? So if I'm a Republican and I'm voting for a Republican, I don't just get to vote for them. We need accountability before they get elected. So me, I'm running for office. I'm not going to wait as a public servant. It's in your DNA to act on things that are issues right away. You don't just say, I'm going to wait till November 8th to look at this education system. I'll wait till November 8th to deal with the selection system. No, you need to work now and prove that you deserve a seat at the table. And if people are just popular on social media and they're saying what their platform is, but they have like, there's, they're paying people to run their social media. Look, if you're a small business, you can pay people to run your social media. If you're a public servant, you get to run your social media. If I'm messaging you, you're a public servant and you're running my district and I'm talking to Joe Schmo, your assistant, no, you're fired. Accountability. A public servant should have enough time to talk to the people. And if they don't, then you don't deserve a seat because you're a public servant. You work for we the people and you get to answer my call because I'm your boss and you get to answer my call. So I think that's important. Accountability. We've not had accountability in our government, and that is what's gotten us to where we are today. And also accountability after we get elected. I don't know if it needs to be a committee. We don't need any more committees, but we need these people to be held their feet to the fire. Okay, you committed to these things in your platform. What have you done this year? Nobody does that. In corporate America, you get to sit across from your boss and look them in the eyes and say, I did good in this, I didn't do good in this. In government, like who comes back? Who asks you anything, right? And so I think that if that was in place, a lot of these politicians wouldn't even last 2 terms. Like they would literally be like crying through their last month, right? And then on top of that, I think based on like if it's Congress, Senate, whatever, like we need to have term limits. Like Congress, I don't think you should run more than 5 terms. You shouldn't be allowed to. And also too, if they were actually working, because I'm exhausted every day and I'm not even in the seat yet. If they were working, they wouldn't last until they're 105. No way. Accountability.
Accountability is one of the main things that I personally am applying to the world of politics around me from now on. I am so guilty of going in and ballot down voting. Just if they've got an R, they get my vote. If they don't, they don't. And when I honestly, and I'm just being completely honest, when I get to the nonpartisan candidates where they don't have an R or a D, I don't know what to vote for. So that will never happen again. If I don't know who I'm voting for, I don't know what they stand for. If I've not put the time to research them, to get to know them, to go to their events, they're not getting my vote. And more importantly, once we put these people in, something that I have personally never done, but I vow to from here on out, is to check up on them. Like you said, every year I sit down with my boss and they tell me, okay, this is where you are. This is what you need to work on. How do you feel that you've done, et cetera, et cetera. And we put people in Congress and we just turn them loose. It's like having a daycare where you just drop your kids off and they just kind of all watch each other. There's no adult in the room to watch over the kids. We can't do that anymore.
And you're the boss.
Mm-hmm.
And you're the boss.
They are and reaching out to you, we want to know who you are, and we want to know what you're about. We want to know who it is that we're tarring and feathering if you don't live up to what you've told us. When you go into office, we fully well expect you to stand for the principles that we put you in for. And once you get there, if you don't, I hope that the people will from now on say, no, that's it. You're coming out very next election, you're done. You didn't do what you said, you're gone.
Right.
With that being said, we'll kind of start wrapping things up. And I want to give you an opportunity to let people know how they can get in touch with you. And as importantly, let people know what you need. Let people know how they can get behind you, support you, the areas of actual labor that you need help in. And then I'll just give you the final word and close us out.
Okay. So, because we are in again, I always say tough district, right? We don't have a primary. We need boots on the ground. And so initially when I decided to run, I realized that I wasn't good at doing things the political way and following all the rules. And so I decided to pivot and to kind of do things, our way, the citizens, but also following some, the things that are a necessity to follow from a political standpoint. And so with that, I decided it's important to raise money and there's reasons behind that, right? Because you have different companies that you're hiring to help you, like consultants. There's which a limitation of that, because I've had bad experiences, but you hire people to help you with your advertisement and marketing, and just like a business. So the way that we're running this campaign is like a small business that's a startup, right? Like we're a startup, we're new in this, but we know that our product is worth it. And so we're investing in the product, we're investing in the business, and we're raising enough capital to succeed, which succeeding is in November. And so we need donations. Like, I mean, we need donations so that we can fulfill hiring the best experts to help us get to winning. We need volunteers. So volunteer wise, in the communities that we're serving, we're going to have like an army of 5 volunteers in each area, and we're going to go boots on the ground. We're going to do campaign ads, not on TV. We're going to print. Oh, you just wait till you see my campaign ad. It's amazing. I love James A. Garfield and Lincoln, and I went back in history and said, I'm not doing this way. How did James Garfield do his campaign? How did he win? How did Lincoln do his campaign? How did he win? And we're going to get ads, and we're going to put them in every window of every business, and at every house, we're going to give it to them. We're going to put it on every tree that allows us to, and every pole that the city is okay with. We're going to have Adina for Congress painted all over town. And so that's how we're going to win the election. But we need a lot of volunteers. We need, to raise just enough money. I also am a big believer there needs to be capped on how much you can raise. If you're a congressperson, you're making $164,000 and you're raising $2 million to win an election, that is not okay. That's taxpayer money. Shouldn't be allowed. So my commitment to you, the Patriots, is that we will not raise a penny more than what we need. We will cap it where we have it, where we need it. But everything that we raise is going to be applied to helping us win. But boots on the ground is like number one with donations. They're like side by side, but boots on the ground is what we need, right? Like donations, I want small donations, masses of people, right? And then volunteers, we need smaller amounts, but we need to cover a big area. We've got an area of 745,000 people population wise. And based on midterm election and primary, presidential election in 2020, and I'm sorry, the midterm before that, we'll win if we get 200,000 votes. So that's a balance between the two. And so that's how many people need to show up and to vote. But I have no doubt that we'll win if we can do those things. If we can have, patriots like you promote us, help us get name recognition, get us our message out, right? Because this is not a Democrats against Republicans election. This is a Patriots, America loving freedom fighters and people that just want to live a good, prosperous life in a capitalist society like we have, and don't want to be bothered and controlled by the government telling you how to raise your kids, right? We want to live in a free country, and we want freedom, and we want our Constitution to be protected. And that's what we're promoting. And so if you're a Democrat, we will embrace you. We don't need you to change your party. We need you to know that there's a problem in your party, and you're willing to humble yourself and come together with us, and let's work together. Because you know what makes America the best country in this world? The fact that we have opinions, different, working across the aisle. And if we collaborate, we make America, right? Like that is how America was created. It wasn't created because it's just one party like country, because that's communism. We don't want just Republicans running this country. We know what happens when you give too much power to anything in the government, right? We want collaboration. We want to take the best of both parties. We want to fix both parties. The only way we'll do that is if we can humble ourselves and say, we need to fight together, and together we will win. I have zero doubts.
Very cool. Adina, you are give us your website, give us your Instagram links, anywhere we can contact you.
Yes, so I've got Instagram, Adina for Congress. I've got a website, and we're updating our website. So it's gonna be the new version this week. We're simplifying it. I think people just need simplicity. Like we've had too much chaos, BS pushed down our, throats. So it's gonna be simple, and really navigating, that'll be where you can make donations as well. And email address, Adina@adinaforcongress.com. I'm also on LinkedIn, which, I know LinkedIn used to be just professional, but let's just admit it, government is in our professional lives. So we've got to control that aspect of it, where we need to ensure that we keep government at arm's length. So I am working with a lot of like the CEOs and stuff through LinkedIn. So if you have a LinkedIn, you can find me there too. And those are pretty much, I don't have all the other social medias. I decided simplicity, and it's too much fighting all the algorithms. So I'm also on YouTube with just my personal name, Adina Safta. But my email address, anytime you reach out to me on social media or my email, you're always gonna get me. I will never, ever pay anybody to run my social media. If I can't manage it, I'm just not gonna have it.
And guys, I can attest, she is very responsive. Anytime I've reached out to her, she's very quick to respond. I consider her not just a candidate, but a friend. And Adina, we thank you so much for letting us get to know you. And I look forward to having you in Congress and representing us here in North Carolina very, very soon. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well, hello, you flag-waving, freedom-loving patriots. My name is Greg Gibson, and I want to thank you for joining the United Patriot Party here on YouTube. And I want to give you some more ways to connect. You can visit our website at uppnc.com. You can join us on the Telegram chat at United_Patriot Party. That's all one word. And you can find us on Instagram at Patriot Party NC. Now listen, I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm having a lot of fun doing it. And I really am honored to stand together with you guys against tyranny as we fight for freedom, for ourselves and for the generations to come.